If you've been telling yourself you can't eat healthy, it can't be tasty, and it certainly can't be economical, you're in for quite a treat as I talk with Debbie Adler, plant-based chef and award-winning cookbook author. She's critically acclaimed with her book, Sweet, Savory, and Free, Insanely Delicious Plant-Based Recipes Without Any of the Top 8 Food Allergens, and Sweet Debbie's Organic Treats. Her newest book, The Mediterranean Plate, is taking the vegan world by storm because not only is it tasty, it's healthy, and it's vegan and no SOS, which means no added salt, no added oil, no added sugar. And those are the processed types. Stick around because you're in for quite a treat as I talk with Debbie, who's been featured in the Los Angeles Times, on NPR radio with Here and Now, and her recipes have been published in national publications such as Pilates Style Magazine, Naked Food Magazine, Allergic Living, Living Without, Simply Gluten-Free, Delight Gluten-Free, Venture Boulevard, and Low Sugar Living. You're in for such an amazing experience as I talk with Debbie Adler.
Are you ready to live the life you deserve? Do you want to feel vibrantly healthy and reach your optimal weight without dieting while being kind to animals and the planet? Then you're in the right place at the right time. Welcome to Plant-Based Eating for Health with your host, certified plant-based nutritionist, Kathleen Gage.
So, Debbie, I'm really excited to be talking to you because I love your book. And I would love for you to share with us, first of all, when did you become vegan? What was the trigger for you? And what about it really excites you?
Well, I never liked meat. So even as a child, even though my grandpa was a kosher butcher and we always had meat in the house, I never enjoyed it. For some reason, it wasn't something that I liked. So becoming vegan was very natural for me. So I never really had a taste for it. However, later on, when my son was born with severe food allergies in 2000, he was born in 2008, I started to do a lot of research about food. Like, why are these kids being born with food allergies? And I came across the China study, which talked about how dairy and other animal products are very detrimental. And then I started exploring that whole food plant-based aspect of veganism, and then switched over to whole food plant-based. So I was vegan for a very long time, but then whole food plant-based more recently because of my son. So, eliminating the oil, the sugar, the salt. So it's been this journey for me. And then, of course, when I got my dog, which I never had a dog before, but when my son was 2, he asked me for a dog. And I really wasn't, it wasn't anything I wanted because I had never had a dog before. But he was so insistent. I said, well, when you're 8 years old, I'll get you a dog. I figured he would forget about it. No, 8 years old on the dot. Well, where's my dog? I said, okay. So I got him a dog, but it was the best thing I ever did because then I fell in love with animals, not just my dog, but every single animal on the planet. So now I'm not whole food plant-based just for health reasons. It's now for the animals as well. So I'm passionate about that aspect.
Wonderful. Well, and I want to dig into it a little bit and about the difference between being vegan and being whole food plant-based and the no SOS protocol, because National Health Association, which is the longest term organization that supports a plant-based lifestyle, they are plant exclusive, no SOS. And a lot of people don't understand the distinction. So can you explain to those people who may not know the difference, what the difference between being vegan is and being a vegan who lives a plant-based whole food lifestyle? And then let's dig into the no SOS.
Yes. So vegan is no animal products. So no fish, no dairy, no meat, and that's it. That's really the definition. No eggs, anything derived from an animal. No honey. That's a very it encompasses. Don't eat anything with a mother. That's what people say. Don't eat anything
mother in a face. Yeah,
with a face. That's a basic vegan definition.
Right.
Okay, but when you get into whole food plant-based, you're also including no oil, no salt, no sugar, because they found that refined oils are very detrimental to your heart. Not only that, but it's empty calories. There is no, they say, oh, have some coconut oil. It's good. They're all very, very bad for you because they're empty calories and they clog your arteries. All refined oils clog your arteries. I'm not talking about oils from like an avocado or oils from a natural food like olives. I'm talking about the bottled oil that you buy in the store, like, grapeseed oil or olive oil. Everyone says olive oil is healthy. It's not. It does clog your arteries. So whole food plant-based includes the distinction of eliminating the oils, refined oils, eliminating salt. You can have miso, things that are naturally salty, but just having pouring salt on your food is very bad for you because it raises your blood pressure and that's going to lead to a stroke. So you don't need that extra salt. There's so much salt in our food anyway. You don't need that. And there's so many ways to salt your food without using salt,
right.
Which I teach. So you use vinegar, you can use herbs and spices, and it makes it salty. Lemon juice makes your food salty. So there are many ways to do salt without using salt. And then finally, sugar. We all know sugar is bad for us, and it just destroys your cellular structure. It causes cancer. It feeds into cancer. So that's where we get the SOS free, salt, oil, sugar free. That's included in the whole food plant-based definition.
Well, and what I would love talking to you about is that you've done a lot of research. Your book, The Mediterranean Plate, which I definitely want to talk about. I was blown away at how well researched your information is. And that in the beginning of the book, you really get into how to set up your kitchen for success, the utensils that you need, and the minimum that you need, which you make it pretty simple for people to transition to a healthy diet. And it's so interesting because when you look at the number of young people that are now autistic compared to how it was when I was growing up and when you were growing up, when I was growing up, I think it was something like 1 in 10 or 20,000. And now it's 1 in, you may have the exact number, but I think it's around 1 in 30, 1 in 35, which is shocking. And a lot of it has to do with our food. So you actually were taking on this journey and your life's work as a result of allergies in your family and with your son. And I'm curious, with your book, you've written several books, and why don't you share with everybody what the titles of your books are?
The first one I wrote was based on my bakery, which was Sweet Debbie's Organic Treats. That's the first book. So all the treats that were in my bakery, I created a bakery that was allergy-free, sugar-free, gluten-free, so that all the kids could have cupcakes for their birthdays. And then I expanded it. It has everything, brownies, granola bars, everything that's you would want, but it's healthy and it's still delicious. So Sweet Debbie's Organic Treats was my first book. My second book was actually published by the publisher of the China study, which was a nice little circle for me because I had been inspired to be whole food plant-based because of the China study, and they happened to be interested in my recipes. So the second book was called Sweet, Savory, and Free, and that's mostly savory recipes. There are some sweets in the back, and that's all whole food, plant-based, allergy-free meals, soups, and meals you could have for holidays, for every day. And then my current book, which you mentioned, The Mediterranean Plate, it's not allergy-free per se, but I do give substitutes if I do use nuts. Which I don't very much in this book, but if I do, I'll give you a substitute. So if you do have an allergy, I give you a way to go around that.
I love that. And what I most love is that I was at a conference back in June. It was for the National Health Association, and their entire menu is completely no SOS. It's plant-based, plant exclusive. And I ate like a crazy person. I mean, I couldn't get enough of that great food. Yeah. And I actually lost weight while I was at the conference. I lost a couple of pounds. And I mean, they had brownies that were unbelievable. So I encourage people to get your books. And I want to remind people you're listening to the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. I'm your host, Kathleen Gage, and I'm talking with Debbie Adler, who is the author of several books. And Debbie, how can people find you? Let's get that taken care of, and then I want to move into some information about your book.
Oh, so if you're on Instagram, you just go to plant.base.debbie.adler. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. So I guess the handle would be Sweet Debbie Adler for the handle on Facebook. And then if you just go to my website, it's www.debbieadler.tv.
Wonderful. And we'll make sure to put that in the show notes, because I definitely encourage people to get the Mediterranean plate. It's a phenomenal. Now, how did you come up with that title, the Mediterranean plate?
I knew I wanted to do a Mediterranean book. And I don't know. That's a very good question. I was trying not to use other people. A lot of people have Mediterranean cookbooks, and I was trying to come up with something that's not used already. I mean, you can use somebody else. Titles cannot be copyright written, just so you know. Right. You can use another person's title, but I didn't want to do that. So there were other people who had the Mediterranean dish, whatever they had, it was already taken. The only one that wasn't taken was the Mediterranean plate. So I thought that pretty much sums up what this is. This is food on your plate that's Mediterranean. So I went with it.
So with the people that they're saying, oh, I could never give up meat and I could never give up dairy, what would you say to them if, I have a family member who just was diagnosed with very high cholesterol, and she writes and she goes, am I dying? Kind of tongue in cheek. And I said, well, you're not helping yourself by not changing your diet. And I gave her some recommendations, and I actually recommended the China study and Eat to Live. And now I can recommend your book because she's a phenomenal cook. So I'm definitely going to let her know about your book. But for the people that resist that change and they say, oh, eating plant-based is so boring, what would you say to them? And what are some easy steps that people can take to actually transition into a healthier lifestyle?
Well, first of all, if you cook a certain way, it's not boring. And, if you take recipes, if you know how to read, you know how to read a recipe. You can do anything, because people say, oh, I can't cook. Well, if you could read, you could cook. That's the number one thing. It's not boring. Obviously, if you're just starting out, you do need help. So, go online, find some recipes that look good. And if you want to transition slowly, I would say substitute one meal a day for a week and make it plant-based. It could be breakfast, it could be lunch, it could be dinner, just one meal. Just say, okay, I'm going to have a plant-based meal for dinner, Monday through Friday this week, and just start like that, one meal. And then challenge yourself to do it for 2 meals the following week. And then by the third week, you're going to want to have all your meals plant-based, because you're going to feel so much better. In 3 weeks, people feel a difference. They have more energy. They're less tired. They sleep better. They lose a little weight, and they naturally want to do more. It's like, oh my God, because the transition, the feeling of transformation is so quick that they don't want to go back, because the meat makes you lethargic, and the cheese makes you filled with mucus. It's
absolutely.
So I think just by doing one meal a week, one meal a day for to start plant-based, and then just continue to do that, incorporating new recipes. Maybe just try 1 or 2 so you're not overwhelmed, and 3 and 4, and before you know it, you have a repertoire.
Let me ask you this: when people use your cookbook and they create something that you've given the recipe for, do you invite them to send you pictures of what they created? Because the reason I ask is on page 63, you have the white bean soup, and that looks amazing. Actually, the pictures in your book, it's worth getting the book just for the pictures. It's like, I really got it for the pictures, but the recipes are great. And the white bean soup, I thought, oh, I'm going to try that. And when I make it, I'm going to send you a picture of it, because I love creating. I never used to enjoy cooking until I became plant-based. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of like, it's an expression of love. And so out of all the recipes you have, if people make it, can they send you on Instagram or somewhere?
I love that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you'll be getting mine. So
okay.
Let's talk about the cost of food, because that's a big issue for a lot of people now that, I've noticed in my own grocery shopping that my bill has gone up about 30% in the last year and not much has changed. But I've also found ways to shop economically. What can you say to those people who they believe that a plant-based diet is actually more expensive? And they're actually saying vegan diet, which veganism isn't a diet. Plant-based eating is a diet. There's a distinction there. But what can you say to the people on how to actually save on their grocery bill and still cook a very healthy meal?
I would say that cooking with plants and grains has got to be cheaper than buying meat and fish and dairy. I almost guarantee it. If you eliminate those proteins from your grocery list, it's, I think, automatically going to go down. Fruits and vegetables are, are going to be what they are. So I don't know, give up something else, because that's going to be your main support is the fruits and vegetables. I would say, and maybe to save money, maybe buy the grains in bulk. So there's a bulk section in every grocery store. And if you haven't explored that, I would do that. Go to the bulk section in the grocery store and get your oats and your quinoa and whatever grains you want in the bulk. That's always very cheap. And if you have, it's winter now, so I don't know if a farmer's market is a possibility for people who live in the eastern part of the country, but farmer's markets, I don't know, try to do organic. I know that's more expensive, but if you can't afford it, then get it's better to have, this is what Dr. Campbell said, who wrote the China study. He said, listen, if you can't afford organic, of course, that's better. Get what you can afford, because any fruit is better than no fruit.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because people will always use that as an excuse. It's like, well, I can't do organic. It's too expensive. So I'm just going to stay with what I'm doing. And what a lot of times people don't look at is the short-term cost compared to the long-term cost. There's heart disease, diabetes, ADHD, autism, there's so much cancer. And so, I actually took some notes as I was going through your book, and I want to talk about the staples that you would recommend that people get as they start on a plant-based journey. And then we're going to talk about herbs and spices.
Okay. So the staples?
Yeah. What would be some must-have staples so that they can cook a nice variety of foods and not get bored with one thing? Because a lot of times what I know happens is somebody finds one recipe and they cook it over and over and over, and then they get bored with it. So
gosh,
what are your recommendations?
Well, I would say have the main vegetables that your family likes always in the fridge. Maybe it's broccoli and zucchini and what else could people like? And salad things. And then always have the grains in your pantry, the grains that you like. Whether it be brown rice or quinoa or millet, and always have that on hand, because you could do so many things with just those two categories, vegetables and grains. And then have nuts and seeds and maybe some cranberries and, raisins. And then you can make bowls and make your own dressings. And I show that in the book. There's a whole section of bowls. I love bowls, and I think a lot of people do because they're fun. It's like an ice cream sundae. You have a base, which is the grains, and then you have some, vegetables, and then you have your nuts and your seeds, and then you could top it with toppings and, make it into this delicious, fun thing. And then the dressing on top, it is so good. I would say that could be a fun way to change up your recipe routine by doing different bowls. It's easy, it's fun, and you can change out, so you're not bored. Change out the veggies, change out the grains, change out the dressing on top, and you're going to have fun for a long time.
So what's your favorite dressing to make that they can find in the book? Oh
my goodness. I have to look. I like like a lot of dressings. I
Mhm.
tend to like dressings that have like a creaminess to them. So like, like green goddess dressings, things like that. Vinaigrettes are good because they're not fattening at all.
Right.
You can, a lot of times when we're, taught this is everyone says, well, careful with the dressing. you don't have to be careful with the dressing if you're having a vinaigrette, because it's just vinegar and a little bit of miso and spices and a drop. I use a little bit of coconut nectar in it's like maple syrup, but it's low glycemic, because I don't like to raise your glycemic levels, because that's bad for your blood count. Your high glycemic is very bad for you because it could raise your blood pressure. So throughout the book, I use coconut nectar, but you could use maple syrup if you don't have it. So I would say that the vinaigrettes, like a lemon orange vinaigrette, a tahini. I like my tahini dressings because it does add that creaminess, and just a little bit of tahini is okay. So yeah, I just do a lot of different dressings in this book for every salad and bowl, because I know
Wonderful.
that makes it extra special.
Well, and I like to prepare a lot of my my foods ahead of time, as far as like slicing and dicing and having it ready, so that when I make a salad, it's really simple. And I'm really looking forward to digging into the cookbook and trying out a number of different recipes. And I want to remind people to get the Mediterranean Plate book by Debbie Adler. And you can go to Amazon, you can go to her website. And again, Debbie, what is your website?
www.debbieadler.tv.
Excellent. Excellent. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes. So I'm curious, on a whole different topic, back to the dog. What kind of dog did your son end up getting?
We got a Labradoodle because they tend to be less, they're hypoallergenic. So, I mean, not that he's allergic to dogs, but, we didn't know at the time. So we just got the most hypoallergenic dog, which is, we did our research, is Labradoodles, and they're very good with kids. That was another reason. So we decided that would have to be the first dog, because we wanted to make it accommodating to my son's allergies and family friendly. And I never had a dog. I was afraid of dogs, and I never had one. So it was just that it had to be a friendly dog.
Right. And I'm on the opposite end. I actually do a lot of rescue. We have 2 rescue dogs. We have a rescue cat. We have 3 rescue horses. We have rescue chickens, and we have a little bit of property, so we're able to do it. But over the years, it's like, oh my gosh, the number of rescues we've gotten. And it's interesting, because when I went vegan, initially it was plant-based, and then I identified as vegan, and now it's vegan plant-based. But when I first made the transition, I didn't connect the dots between, here I love animals, I'm rescuing animals, and I'm eating them. And you mentioned how as you learned more, it actually did become about the animals also. Yes. Tell us how that happened, and how that really opened your eyes to the denial that people are in, and what it's doing to people's health, quite seriously.
Oh my goodness. I don't know when it actually hit me. Maybe I saw the videos that started to come out of the slaughterhouses, and I cannot watch something like that without crying the whole day. Mm-hmm. I think that started to be the impetus for me to be horrified. It was going to sanctuaries. I go to all the sanctuaries, Farm Sanctuary, Gentle Barn, which is they're in Los Angeles. I'm bringing my son. And knowing, and they tell the stories, about what happens to animals. So it's a combination of seeing horrific videos, going to farm sanctuaries, knowing what happens to animals. How dare we? Who are we to be killing them? I mean, the whole thing is so barbaric. It just kills me. And so, I started to become an activist. I give money to the farm sanctuary. I don't, what was the question? I'm not.
Well, it's interesting, because we do go into a tailspin when we start talking about what happens to the animals. It's horrendous. And I recently had the opportunity to interview a young woman from New York who actually goes out on the streets of New York, and she very gently kind of brings people into her web of like, hey, tell me about, what kind of food you eat. And then it's like the sledgehammer goes down. Her name is Jamie. It's Jamie's Corner is her show. And she talks about where people are at. You meet them where they're at. If it's animals, if it's the environment, if it's food. And I think what happens to all of us, Debbie, and it sounds like this has happened to you, because I know it has to me, is like, we may start for one reason. And then as we pull back the veils, as we meet the influencers like Dr. T. Colin Campbell and just all of the amazing people like yourself who are doing great stuff in the world to raise that awareness, the veils get lifted and we cannot go back to where we're at. And once we identify as vegan, we may have other motivators, but once we're vegan, we are vegan. And it's not that, that vegan diet, because again, I never used to understand that, but now I really get it. So Debbie, I would love for you to share where you see things going over the next few years as a result of what's happened with the pandemic. What's happened in New York? I just found out they have wet markets, live animal wet markets, and I never knew that. There's 80 in New York, right in New York City, in the boroughs and everything. I learned that from Jamie, as a matter of fact. But where do you see things going, and what can you leave people with to really encourage them to at least educate themselves on a healthier way of living, a more compassionate way of living, and energetically something that's going to be great for their mind, body, and soul?
I would say, first of all, if you want to stay well and have a long, healthy life, this is the way to go. Whole food plant-based is the way to go. Because if you're eating meat and dairy, you are not going to be well. You may live longer, but you're going to be really sick. That is a guarantee. You're not going to get away with it. You're going to have heart disease. You're going to get diabetes, one of the above. Maybe not all of them, but that is guaranteed. So I would say if you love your life, you want to do whole food plant-based. It's naturally going to help you live healthier. I mean, I'm not guaranteeing you're not going to get sick, but there's a better chance that you'll stay well and have a healthier, long life that you can enjoy. And in terms of being compassionate, I don't like to push people to look at horrific videos, but if you want to see what happens at a slaughterhouse, because when you see it at the grocery store, it's a beautiful display and it looks pretty, and maybe people aren't connecting what that is to what happens to those animals. So I would say watch one of those videos and see how horrific we are treating these animals before they die. And they shouldn't be dying at all. They should be living a nice life in a beautiful place. Like we get to live, they should get to live. So in terms of, and then the compassion also extends to our planet, because eating animals doesn't help the planet. It's contributing to climate change. And look what's happening with all the weather and the extreme weather we're having. That is a direct result of eating meat and all the terrible things that we're doing to the environment. So if you want to live a good life, if you don't want to hurt animals, if you have a pet, I don't see how you can be eating meat. Because if you love your pet, then why wouldn't you love a cow or a pig? It's the same thing, So I would do some soul searching, I think people are so busy running around, they're not really thinking very much.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And my morning protocol consists of, I do yoga, I do meditation, I go on a run. I had a nice 2-mile run this morning in 45-degree weather. It was delightful. Wow. And that's my time to really get grounded and centered to live a more conscious life. So Debbie, I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. And I want to remind people to get Debbie's book, The Mediterranean Plate from Debbie Adler. And Debbie, we'll make sure to put all this in the show notes. We'll put the link to the farm sanctuary so that people who enjoyed this conversation, they can make a donation to the farm sanctuary. I'd appreciate that. And Debbie, I wish you the greatest success. Thank you for all you're doing. And I want to remind people, you've been listening to the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. I'm Kathleen Gage, your host. Have a great day and live a healthy life.
Thank you for your commitment to an ethical life through plant-based food choices. The kind of choices that are kind to your body, the environment, and most of all, animals. Be sure to leave a review and rating of the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show.